I think the president has a tremendous amount of power, specifically to set the agenda and direction of the country.
I mean, I see our country as being one of the major superpowers in the world.
I think the president probably has more symbolic power than actual governmental power.
They don't make a lot of decisions in and of themselves, so I don't think they have a lot of power.
They do have a lot of power because they obviously are the person who's going to represent us with all these different countries.
He is the commander-in-chief. He makes major appointments for the Supreme Court, for the rest of the federal judiciary.
I think the president has a lot of power as far as perception goes.
When you look at the importance of the office of the President of the United States, people may tend to overrate exactly how much power that position actually holds.
The president was originally designed to be a weak executive way in 1776 and beyond, and it's totally morphed into this, not quite dictator, obviously that's a little bit strong of a word, but he is a commander-in-chief and the chief executive, whereas previously the idea was to have the people represented in full force in Congress and the House. And now he's in charge of, like I said, all the appointments. He wields all sorts of power that the other branches just simply do not have.
They have the ability to veto different bills that may come through Congress, and they really set, where our focus is as a country for at least 4 to 6 years out.
Especially right now, you want a president who's going to pick a Supreme Court justice. I mean, they have that much power where they can determine this person who's in this role until they die, which is insane. So you have things like that.
I think that the way, our country works is we have the built-in controls which sort of balance out each other. So, a president can't take an agenda too far in one direction most of the time.
I would like to believe that the world looks to us for an example on how to behave internationally. So I think our president has a lot of power. Not just here, but outside our country.
With certain things, he has a lot of power, and with other things, I feel he has nothing to do. Gun control, for example. I feel the president should be doing more.
Damn it, he wanted stuff like guns, he wanted, change as far as guns goes. This is very difficult for him to really make any meaningful change, and I think it's been a good reminder, especially recently, of how little power he has.
Because obviously he can't create laws on his own, but veto power is extraordinarily powerful, or the threat of veto power.
The president has presidential power, and it's somewhere between policy-driven and figurehead. The president has to bring in a cabinet. He's much like a coach, has to have assistant coaches that help drive a team. The president is also a figurehead. He's the person who has the authority and the ability to represent all the people of this country. However, the president doesn't have the power to dictate, because this isn't a dictatorship, what happens to the people of this country.
A few things. The president's charter is to entertain foreign guests. They're also to pardon prisoners at the end of their term. They're not pushing the button, as most people think.
Probably the strongest thing that a president can bring to the table is the ability to influence Congress and help enact change, enact reform, or even just bring about action at all. And in the absence of a truly strong presence, I think we have what we, to a certain degree, have had probably over the last 12 to 16 years, which is a lot of inaction and a lot of partisanship, a lot of infighting in those houses, which leads to nothing.
The Senate's pretty balanced, almost 50-50 Democrat, Republicans. Congress is always lopsided opposite. So if the president's a Republican, the Congress is usually Democratic, right? And so the president really can't make the decisions, right? Bills get made and enacted by Congress, not by the president. So limited power locally, but national, around the globe, lots of power. Who we do business with, who we have free trade with, economic balances and checks and balances with other countries.
No matter who's going to be your president, I don't think that's going to determine your level of freedom. It really doesn't. I mean, this person is a person who fights for a country. I mean, it seems like people don't even realize that the people who are the head of the states you live in are actually a lot more, they actually determine a lot of your rights. more than the president does. The president is on the federal level, and they deal with more foreign policy and all these things that really don't barely affect the state or the cities that you live in.
As a president, if you can move the needle just a tiny bit, you've done a significant job as president. Because really, although you have a lot of power, it's hard to get things done, through Congress and the judicial system. But just by moving it a little bit, you could do a lot as president.